And I think Novo recognized into Biocorp our ability to be agile, to be a bit crazy on some stuff. And I think at some point pharma are looking on those elements, this setup which makes Biocorp I believe a bit unique in our industry. I think he felt that I was angry, hungry, both. And I think you need that because at some point you need to push a bit in the world that we are living in the pharma industry or medical device. I think things are pretty well codified, I would say. And if you are maybe too lean or too shy, or that maybe won't make any huge impact. And I think that's certainly in my DNA okay, that's not possible, but we'll make it work anyway. I mean, the door is closed, but then we'll get into through the window. And I think that was really that's my setup. If I have to just to keep one element of our 10 years of work together, it's the trust that he's been able to give me. And by trust is, that's where I want to go. Manage the company the way you want to manage it to get to that direction. And I think obviously that's more than a mentor for me.
Hello everyone, thank you for listening to Pharma Minds. Today we will have an exciting episode as I am with Eric Dessertenne. Maybe you don't know this guy yet, but you will. Yes, it's a rising star in the today's pharma world. Eric is a pharmacist from Clermont-Ferrand. He started to work in consulting and then he went to Biocorp. Biocorp, the small medical device company, and developed the first-in-class connected accessory for insulin pen injector. And he's now the CEO of Biocorp. And maybe you've read the news recently. And Biocorp has been sold to the Danish company Novo Nordisk. Then, yes, it's quite a great pitch to start a good story. Then, hello, Eric.
Hello, Nathalie. Very happy to be with you today. Yeah, I'm doing super well. Thank you.
Cool. Eric, I would like to start with the latest big news. The Novo Nordisk, bought Biocorp for 154 million euros last June. They wanted to buy the world-leading insulin, the first sensor. They want to buy a sensor called Malia. Why did they want to buy it?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think it's a long story with Novo. We've been starting to work officially together a bit more than 2 years ago, and I think it was let's say preparing ourselves before the wedding. Let's put it that way. That was really a way for the two companies to know each other. I think we've been able to bring to Novo some innovation that was definitely important in the journey of the patient they are serving in the insulin space, but also in other conditions such as growth hormone and now the GLP-1 class. So I think it's really a technology play, and Malia has been super important in that setup. But it's also a mix of two companies and how we can continue to work together and innovate in the future. And I think Novo recognized into Biocorp our ability to be agile, to be a bit crazy on some stuff. And I think at some point pharma are looking on those elements, this setup which makes Biocorp I believe a bit unique in our industry.
Wow, we start this episode with craziness. I wasn't expecting this. Then, they wanted to buy the sensor by what we demonstrated, but yes, they expect the best for your future. And what can you describe as your unique expertise?
Yeah, so I think it's in the setup we are creating together with Novo. It's really to continue of having Biocorp as an independent company. So continue, let's say, to innovate quite independently from Novo. And I think they perceived that what we are doing in a pretty small setup, because Biocorp today it's only 100 employees. is something where we are trying to push boundaries in our industry. And obviously, medical device is a regulated industry, a bit differently than the pharma world. But ultimately, timelines of development and regulation are not so different. And I think if you are a small company, as we've been at Biocorp, and the startup mindset, that is really our mindset. So trying to find the unmet need and do not put yourself any major limits to try to answer and find the best solution. I think that's really what has been driven. All the key employees, and I think it's also coming from the founder of the company that was. And is an entrepreneur by essence. It's in his fundamental DNA to innovate, to push, and say. And it always taught me that if you're a small company, you need to do things different if you would be a bigger company. And I think that's really something that has been so present in my mindset, but also in the mindset of my key managers, that ultimately it's the image of Biocorp. I see that's how we are recognized today, by not defining any major barrier in that creative thinking.
Well, lots of things. Lots of things. Yes, the first one is, okay, then your unique expertise is to be able to make the bridge between the medical device and the pharma. That's why that's something you demonstrated quite well.
Yes, so I think it's really understanding from the patient perspective what they want, and also considering that we are developing the main DNA of Biocorp is working on smart medical devices, and it's pretty tough because in a way you have to comply with the same type of development timelines that you are complying in a standard medical device, but you are in an industry which is moving way faster. That's what you have in traditional medical device. Take the example of a sensor that is not only used for the medical device, but potentially for your smartphone that we are using for the interview. And every 2 or 3 years, there's a new sensor. So you need to make sure that your development timeline is in line, not with what the standard is in the medical device industry, but the speed of innovation and evolution that you have in the electromedical industry in which we are making an impact. So I think it's a kind of setup which is pretty complicated. You want to innovate in medical device, but with technology that moves way faster than the usual setup and ways of working that we have in our industry.
Okay. I think we'll talk about this maybe later to understand how you make this well. And the other thing is making things differently, because you said the DNA comes from a founder who has really an entrepreneur spirit, and this brought all the value maybe of the company. Can you talk about this?
Yeah, sure. I think the first there's a couple of value that I believe are super important to get a project from day one to where do you want to get it. And first one is getting that vision, that fundamental vision. Where do we want to go? What type of project do you want to move on? And ultimately, what's the solution you want to put on the market? And there is nothing easy, I would say, in that journey. But if you stick to that objective, then you will have the ability to find a way, maybe not the way that you thought at the beginning, but the way to succeed. And I think that's getting a vision that needs to be strong and not moved along the way, even if you have to face some difficulties. The second one is giving to anyone into the company and your managers trust. And really in that innovation journey, some days you have bad news on the development side, on the regulatory side, etc. And I think if people are not trusted by the CEOs or the shareholders that they will find a solution, I believe that there's a lot of reason to say no. I mean, we cannot make it work. We have to think differently. We have to do something else. So and goes back to something which I believe is super important for a startup is resilience. I mean, you need to be committed, and I think it's come from the top and making sure everyone is on the same boat to ultimately succeed. But that's a tough journey.
Yes, that's probably one of your strengths, the strength of Biocorp to have proved this kind of things, being able to pass the steps. Yes, you start really like deeply. I would like to go maybe a bit back on the what you are doing. You launched like a first in class sensor in the insulin market. Does it is something interesting, important to be the first in class also in the medical device industry in sensors? How does it work? It's the same things of agility, speed.
Yeah, so I think it's it goes back. If you are a small company, you need to differentiate yourself. You need to set up barriers to entry to make sure you find your own space. And yes, doing things differently to answer obviously to an unmet need that has been why we decided to go on that product. But the true story is that it was a bit by surprise and by accident that we came to Malia, and that's what I believe is a fun part of the entrepreneurial world. You have something that you thought was good at the beginning, but maybe that was not the right thing to do, and you find another way, and that's basically how Malia was born. Let's put it that way.
It's quite crazy what you're saying, because I recently had an episode with Professor Eric Wiber, and he told me the same, that innovation is like often the result of hazardous situations.
I tend to believe so. Yeah. I'm always
yes,
joking.
Can you explain maybe a bit what happened?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So basically, when I started at Biocorp, almost 10 years ago, and we had a device which was a prototype at that time, and that was our idea was to get a connected pen. So I think in that vision that I mentioned before, the vision was this one, but the way we were anticipated to answer that vision was with a motor-driven reusable pen injector. And we went to a couple of pharma company at the time in the insulin space. So a good thing in that industry is that you have only a couple of pharma that you need to focus on. And Novo was already part of those at the time. So back in 2015 or 2016. And they told us, guys, what you're doing is interesting, but we've been spending hundreds of millions of euros in our disposable pen platform. That's what patients are using today. And we are not so much interested to go back to reusable pen, but the connectivity piece is crucial for us. We want to get our pen connected. So we were, I would say, true on one part of the solution, get the connectivity. We were wrong for, all the other elements of our solution. So we went back to our camp and we thought about, different ways to get disposable pen connected. And, it's coming really from that innovation spirit. And, I often joke to my head of R&D. I think he has the best ideas, same time of the day, around 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. And sometimes, maybe not thinking about work. That's where you find the best solution. And I think the first idea of Malia came around that clock. And it was really to challenge ourselves because we didn't have the good solution, even if the ultimate vision was certainly good.
Okay, then you followed the requirement from the big pharma companies who wanted to use single use but have a sensor?
Yeah, I think you need to be close to the market, and I think that's what has. That's one of the first experience for me to be at that time. I was exposed to pharma and BD guys from those pharma, and yes, I mean um, they see the trends, and you need to hear as a small company where the trends are going, and I think it was really a combination of getting those trends for pharma. We've been also discussing with patient and HCP. And ultimately, we thought, yes, I mean, we need to think about it a bit differently, and that's how Malia has been created.
Okay, then today it's for yes, diabetes patients with diabetes, and also maybe other pathology, other pains, or how is it?
Yeah, so diabetes is definitely the huge part of the application. I think it's to my knowledge, at least, it's the only therapeutic area where diagnosis and drug delivery are so related. You need to monitor yourself a couple of times per day, and then you need to inject yourself a couple of times per day if you are type 1 or type 2 with insulin requirements. And the decision you made yesterday is different from the decision you'll make today, certainly different from the decision you'll make tomorrow, even if on the paper, I mean, you did the same thing as yesterday and you will do the same thing tomorrow. But you didn't sleep as well. There's a lot of things that can influence basically your regimen, and patient need tool. And I think that was really to get those tools for diabetic patient. And I think also why diabetes is so important for us is that it's a disease where patients are already pretty much digital. And I'm sure you've seen during summertime, most of the time, that's where we see those. I mean, those small sensors that usually you have those on your arms to monitor your blood glucose level. And two major companies, Abbott and Dexcom, I think they've changed completely the way diabetic patients are monitored. And thanks to that, it changed the life of patient, which is awesome, but also make those patients connected. So it means that your iPhone becomes your best friend, where you're getting all the information. So I'm getting diagnosis on my and blood glucose information on my iPhone. Why I'm not getting my information on insulin doesn't make any sense. So I mean, we're putting that piece, which was the missing elements of the puzzle, and diabetes is definitely an obvious application. And we have two other areas where we are working on growth hormone deficiency. So for kids, obviously, but also for parents that are a bit afraid of performing the injection to the kids, and also for fertility condition, where its use case is a bit different. So usually it's very engaged patients and women they want to have a kid, but we have more a way of reassuring that they are doing the right job, they are injecting at the right time of the day, etc. So the setup is a bit different depending the disease area, but the three major applications in which we are playing today.
Okay. And then you bring the full value chain from the device to the software and the validation of everything.
So good question. But back in 2015, and that's also the other part of the startup thing. Joking a bit about that, but I think as a startup, first you want to do everything. I mean, you want to. I don't know if you want to change the word, but you put yourself in a position potentially to make it happen. And then you realize, obviously, along the way that it's not as easy as you thought. And you need potentially to prioritize, because you need to raise capital, and you need to make sure you are allocating that capital in a good way. And basically at first we wanted to do everything, the device, the software, the cloud, and data analysis directly back to the pharma. That was certainly what needed to be done. And at that time, with all the pharma we were discussing about, they were just sharing to us that digital was easy. I mean, please focus on the device. We'll focus on the digital. We'll make it happen. Okay, so that's what we did. we focus on the device. And I can tell you that I've never seen a project where digital has been easy. I mean, in all different projects we've been involved, it has been all the time a pain in the ass to get a digital product out for any pharma company. But we focus first on the device, and then we partner with other third-party software application. And now, as we are progressing and we are way more mature on the device side, we're adding new setup of services around the device, and software is part of it. But it's progressive. And today, as it is still, consider Biocorp mainly as a device manufacturer and device developer, but we have the ambition to do more and alleviate maybe the pain of pharma companies to not handle the digital piece, which is not so easy for them, for anyone, I would say.
Okay. Yes, and then they accept this. They need to accept this, that they need to outsource or to get it from the outside.
It's a good point. Yes and no. I think if you get back basically to what you did well or not well, and that a lot of these pharma are doing that exercise, they realize basically that, if you do that internally, you're spending a lot of resources potentially to not get anything out. So I think they realize a bit more that an external company, and just not about Biocorp, but that external company can do that in a better way. And maybe with different also regulation. I mean, not regulation, but requirements. I mean, the QMS of a startup company or a medical device company only is very different from a pharma company that is using digital in his own house. So that's, I think they are moving now more to externalize those stuff and realize that internally it's more difficult, but still I believe there's some work to be done.
Okay. Then it's part of a model you're, I don't know, inventing or trying to experience with Novo, to be externally but internally.
Absolutely. Yes, that's exactly the setup. We are an innovation engine for Novo. We are on the equity base. We are a Novo Nordisk company. On the setup, we are an external company. So we'll do something certainly unique in the field, and hopefully we'll make it work. That's our ambition. So yes, we are 100 at Biocorp today. We have approximately, let's say, 50% of the team that is engineer based. So mechanical engineer, firmware and software engineer. And we have approximately 50% of the workforce, which is related to manufacturing, because we are doing our own manufacturing in Issoire, south of Clermont-Ferrand, and also obviously a lot of the work that are on regulatory and quality that are quite important in our setup.
Good. Then yes, it's a lot of competences which are not like the traditional setup of a pharma company.
Absolutely, and if you look at the the firmware engineer, the data scientist, etc., it's most of the time talents that have not been exposed to anything which relates to pharma or medical device, but we are training them to get used to those requirements. But yes, it's certainly in between a tech talent and we are moving them progressively to better understand the medical device world. But yes, you get a pretty diverse pool of talents within the company.
Yeah, cool. I would like to understand a bit the journey of a startup having partnerships and in the end being bought by his partner. And how does it go? Would you like to talk a bit about, maybe the first discussions, because you had many partners and in the end you decided to choose one. Someone decided to choose the wedding.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's funny what you say, because that's, I mean, we have a very specific setup at Biocorp because our founder is 73 or 4, and it was obvious, I would say, for anyone that was looking a bit into how Biocorp is structured, that at some point there will be an exit. So let's say that we were prepared collectively, myself, the rest of the team, but also the partners for which we've been working, that at some point the founder won't be there anymore. He had close to 50% of the shares. And he had more than 60% of the voting rights, so the company was managed by him directly. So I think our partners knew that this setup at some point would change, and I think what's the potential acquirer are looking for, but also your partners, is a good mix between what's coming from innovation, and I'm looking to work with a startup that's going to push a bit the boundaries, and at the same time, I want to make sure that I have a reliable partner. And the two sometimes are super complicated to go together, because if you're a startup, maybe you don't have the structure and muscle to have a good QMS and good manufacturing setup, etc. And because of our story at Biocorp, we had that manufacturing setup because we've been created in 2004, and our knowledge from the beginning was on manufacturing of medical device. And then we added the connectivity piece later on in our story. So I think that helped us to get into some partnership, and those partners, I think they tested us for some time and thought, yes, I mean, that's a company that is, I believe, delivering pretty well. Those guys are maybe have pretty good ideas, and I think that's basically how the things are going out. And then we went we were in a selling process, and Novo was a company in which we perceived that there would be a fit, strategic fit, but also that was super important for the founder, a cultural fit. You need to make sure that, I mean, like a wedding.
Yeah.
On the paper that fits, but you need to live together to make sure that will work. And I think with Novo, we had the chance for 2 years to work together, to have team exchanging together, and I was sure that it was a good way for us moving forward.
Yes, and you started since when you started to be the CEO instead of the founder?
So basically, I started in the company in 2015, something like that. Yes, 14. And so it will be my 10 years next year at Biocorp. And I've been heading the business development group for 4 years and a half, 5 years, let's say, and then CEO for a year and a half, and then CEO. And I would say that in real life, I would say I'm managing the company since I am CEO. It was more for Jacques to have an intermediate setup between giving me all the keys, I would say, of the car. But we've been working very closely together in that journey. So almost 5 years, I would say.
Yes. Okay. Yes, because it's a really long story. 10 years ago, you start with a vision, and in the end, you finally make it to serve patients with chronic disease. But maybe you get the strength of your mentor. You get the talent also from him. How did it work, this relationship? It started to be a bit more into personal fit, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great story, and I think that's the most exciting part of my professional life. It's first it was I bumped into Biocorp completely by surprise. I mean, that was definitely not on my radar to get out of consulting, at least not for now. And I got a call from my master of thesis, and he told me, there's an entrepreneur in the Clermont-Ferrand area. He has a project, a vision, but is looking for a talent in the BD side. You should have lunch together. And first, I like to have lunch, and second, I mean, it doesn't hurt. So yes, we met each other, and I think you have a couple of these situations in your life that sometimes you feel something that was certainly not a good time. That was certainly not what I meant to do on the short run, but I felt that there was an opportunity. At that time, Biocorp, there was 20 employees, 3 million euro turnover, not a lot of cash to finance the ideas, but I trusted that guy, and I think he trusted me, and the other way around. And that was really the beginning of the journey together. And I think if I have to just to keep one element of our 10 years of work together, it's the trust that he's been able to give me. And by trust is that's where I want to go. Manage the company the way you want to manage it to get to that direction. And I think in a CEO seat, you cannot leave a better setup. I mean, when you perceive that you have the trust of the founder, the majority shareholder, even in tough time, and we live tough time together, but we need to get strong together. And where those moments are a bit shaky, to ultimately also succeed together. And I think that's obviously that's more than a mentor for me. But I think it's I hope that everyone getting into an entrepreneurial setup would have the same level of trust that I got. And I believe if you are shareholder in a company and you're looking for an executive team to move your project to the next level, I think you need to bet on them and give them the chance to succeed. I think that was hopefully what I got from Jacques, and that's a great personal story and professional, obviously, because we went to the objective we had set up at the beginning, which is super exciting.
Yes, like it seems like a dream story.
It is. If you look back, it is. For me, it is.
No, what is? Yes, but what is really interesting is the mix between the young and the experienced people, and this thing. I think this is something most of the time which is not done at all, because of I don't know, hierarchy or whatever. And you need to maybe get the luck to find people who are like open to more experienced people to work with youngest people to make this mix happen, because exactly as you said, the experience, you cannot invent it.
No, I agree. And what you say is, I think it's super important because. Sorry, I think it's really important because I didn't felt, even if it was obviously the case, I didn't felt that I was the youngest member of the executive committee at Biocorp when I entered. I mean, I never felt that, and I think it's more sensing if you are mature enough to get those responsibility rather than looking at your resume. And if you are, let's say, only 30 and we're looking for a 40 plus experienced person, then you are not you're not the one. And I think Jacques has been able to put that completely on the side. I don't know if I would have been able personally to do that the same way if I would have been in his shoes. But I think ultimately that's
you will make this later.
Yes, now, yes, definitely. It pushed me to do that, but that was courageous, and but also I can understand that it could be a challenge sometime to get more, at least less experienced people running the boat. But I think that works because you're working together with the experienced people, and basically, even if I was making the decision and the choice on a daily basis, I mean, we've been sharing on strategy and roadmap and HR, etc. I mean, a couple of times per week, and that was super important for me. I needed that.
Yeah. then I have the feeling it's maybe the one part of how it takes risks. Like taking risk in such a company can be like finding the value, taking risk, hiring someone who is like out of nowhere, but accept something we feel or small concrete things.
Yeah, I think he felt. I think he felt that I was angry, hungry, both, and I think you need that to, because at some point you need to push a bit in the world that we are living in, the pharma industry or medical device. I think things are pretty well codified, I would say, and if you are maybe too lean or too shy, or that maybe won't make any huge impact. And I think that's certainly in my DNA to, okay, that's not possible, but we'll make it work anyway. I mean, the door is closed, but then we'll get into through the window. And I think that was really that's my setup. And I think Jacques felt that potentially that what was needed to push a topic that on the paper was innovative, but we have a lot of things to do to convince people that was the way to go, and our product was good, and the company could make it happen. So yeah, I think that's. But that goes with the feeling. I fully agree with you. That's very sensitive.
Yes, and do you have examples on how it took risks, for example, how you took risk during this adventure?
So me personally, I mean, I took pretty limited risk. Had the, let's say, I wouldn't say the nice position, but the only risk I took was not going to, I mean, what was my track, I would say at the time. So I mean, Fondi, I did ESSEC, I did strategic consulting. I could certainly have done that a couple of years more than going into a biotech and a big pharma and looking for, I mean, certainly an exciting role in the pharma. I think it was designed this way. So the risk I took was to make another decision of my professional life. I went to something more exotic that could potentially have failed, and then potentially I would have been in a more complicated position. But yeah, that was not really me funding the adventure. And if I'm looking at Jacques, he's a self-made man, so he has not the baccalaureate. He has absolutely no scientific background, and his only motto is, I have an idea, but I need to look at the best talent to make that idea being live and exist. And yes, it took a lot of risk because it's not him who is driving the boat. But it's coming from his personal funding, and yes, it took some risk because he invested before we went public. He invested 6 or 7 million euros in the company, which was for him a very significant amount of money. So so for all of that, I mean, trusting people, giving people that you barely know the key of the car, funding the company yourself. Knowing that it will take you suddenly 10 years to exit. I mean, that's risk, honestly, that I would have personally a lot of difficulties to take, even if I'm a risk taker. Yeah. So maybe you need to be crazy.
Because, yes, there's a risk of, yes, because you have the first risk. Okay, you start the adventure together, but along the 10 years, I can imagine you had to take many times, many risks.
Yes, absolutely.
And can you, I don't know, go back a bit around on these 10 years from step to step, so we can understand, yes, which kind of decision you could have, which kind of risk you had to take, which kind of, I don't know, situation you couldn't imagine.
I think there's a lot. I think we can maybe write a book at some point, and it's certainly all people working in a startup can write a book. Then I don't know if that would be super exciting for the reader, but at least I see, yes, a lot of things, and maybe in three major families. So one is funding. You have an idea, you want to get it through, but yeah, you need cash to make it happen. And I remember that when we started the IPO process. So that time, so Jacques was a CEO, and we were doing the roadshow with the CFO and myself, and we were running for IPO. It was the Friday, and the book was already covered almost 2 times. And then over the weekend, the Greece make default on his debt, and on Monday, the booked went from 2-time coverage to 50% of the offer was subscribed only. So basically, you go back on Friday evening, and the champagne is almost in the fridge, and you wake up in the morning. You have, yourself. You have just not impacting anything over the weekend, but you wake up with a headache that is not coming from the champagne, but definitely something from the outside. So it's tough, and then finding cash for me is certainly one of the most complicated thing, or at least where a CEO is spending most of the time. And even if your company is as a great project, sometimes there's external elements that makes your life potentially complicated. So on the product, then when you obviously started a project and innovation, you have a lot of steps to go through, and as I mentioned earlier on, there's sometimes things that you realize that potentially you won't be able to solve it from a very technical perspective or regulatory perspective, and can tell you that sometimes you perceive that all the wishes you had to make it happen could be you realize that potentially it won't be feasible. So that's tough, and obviously that was far from being alone in that adventure, and had a credible team and very innovative. So we always found solution, but that's obviously a challenge that exists all along the way. And the last point was on the partnership, and I was obviously leading that on a daily basis, because that's what I was hired for, and I think what I like the most is talking with potential customer and explaining why we are doing things that others are not doing, and convincing people. I think that's what I like. And I've been frustrated for a long period of time, because you believe that you are getting some level of excitement, but as I mentioned before, you have not checked all the elements that are needed to make a partnership. So they are looking in a due diligence, they are looking at your financials, they are looking at your QMS, they are looking at your product, they are looking about your ability to put the product on the market. And yes, it took some time before we went to a very significant deal, and at that time that was Sanofi, the first major deal that we signed. And it's really your life is up and down, and sometimes it's difficult as well to find new solution. And so I think that's the 3 elements that, if you are in the entrepreneur journey, you need to be resilient on these 3 factors: product, funding, and partnership, to ultimately make it work.
And how did you describe this relationship with investors, for example? How was it?
I recognize that the work of investor is not easy at all, and but I think we made a decision, and I don't know if it was a good or bad decision, in 2015 to go public. And why we did that, I think for 2 reasons. One is Jacques did that before for another company, so he knew the process. And second one, at least in 2015, the private market was certainly not so well structured to finance companies such as Biocorp at that time. But you are getting into the public market, which means first a lot of things to handle for a small company. So you're a public company, so anything that you do as a partnering is a press release. You're getting your financial public twice a year. There's a lot of work that you have to do with funds and meeting them regularly. But I think the most challenging thing I had to manage was the timeline of investor is super different from the timeline of an entrepreneur. Even more when you're starting your journey. I mean, we were in 2015, our product was far from being approved. So even if an investor says, at least on the public market, I'm long term, I mean, long term might be maximum 2 years. And 2 years in the medical device development, it's definitely not long term. So I think it's that's a big challenge. And I think the most important thing, I believe, for investor is and for a company in general, is never overpromised. Never. It's certainly better to come with good surprise rather than disappointing elements. And I think we've been able with Jacques, in all the discussion we had with investor, to say it's going to take time. It's going to be long, but please be with us. Trust, we have that vision. We know we'll make it happen. And ultimately, I think that was good because we got some investor, which is I mean, very unusual, that went with us since IPO until the exit. So 8 years, and that's that's a signal of trust.
Yes, it's maybe also for you like a situation when you feel comfortable to continue the journey and want to keep going.
Even if sometimes, yes, I agree with you. Even if sometimes, you know, the markets and what you're seeing on your stock price and what you're seeing from inside the company are very different. So also sometimes could create some frustration. But I think that's that's something you need to accept in a way. And so, I mean, and I think communication, explaining to your investor base what you're doing, what's the next step, and repeat that message over and over. I think it's something really that you need to do on a very regular basis.
Yes, it's really interesting, and I don't know if you already answered, but do you already shared your ingredients for success?
So I think there's no. I don't have one recipe, but I hope I would have one recipe to do it again and again. But I think it's it's a mix of ingredients that I believe will need to be there, like a good as a French one with good crepe. You need to have your good flour and good eggs and etc. And I think it's certainly, as I mentioned before, sticking to a project. And I think it's sometimes easy to find ways to change your vision. Say it's too complicated. I thought blah blah blah. Okay, so but if you thought about something and you made the exercise, you believe that you answer to an unmet need, never give up. Maybe the way to go there will be very different to the one that you perceived at the beginning. That's perfect. But do not give up on that. The second, obviously, which is also a challenge from a startup, but chase the best talent that you can have. And I think if you get a team, maybe smaller team, but with really top people, then you can make a huge difference. And then I think the mindset is. And the mindset also of your team leaders is you're a family, you're getting a journey together. I mean, and I remember discussion together with my team. And I think I remember more when it was complicated because you felt at this time that, I mean, we were together. I was not alone. And you can look back and you feel that there is a team with you to succeed together. And I think that's definitely when you need to look for when you're starting a journey as a CEO of a startup, is chase for the best and make sure you have a solid team and without being friends, you act like a friend. And I think that's super important.
Okay, great, thank you. And if you want to talk a bit maybe about your future, now you're part of the strategic innovation of Novo. You will continue to bring your best. What still passionates you?
I think the setup that Novo offered to Biocorp and to myself is unique because basically they told us, continue to do what you're doing, and I cannot, that's what I like. Basically, I've been doing that for 10 years. I still have a lot of energy. We can do that suddenly with more financial power that we versus what we did so far. So I think that's definitely super exciting. So what I'm personally excited about is innovating, is trying to continue have ideas and pushing those ideas to a certain level. I cannot be more proud to see products being on the market and serving an unmet need for patients. So I think as long as those objectives are met in the new setup, I will keep as motivated as I've been for the last 10 years.
Crazy, huh? Crazy story. And what I found really interesting is the fact you nearly never worked in the big pharma world. Was it something who missed you, or was it a strength for you to being a pharmacist, understanding what they talk about, but not having their mindset or their habits?
It's a good question, and I need to be cautious because now I'm part of that setup in a pharma
Yes.
company. But
we can cut if you...
no, please don't. So no, I think it's as I mentioned before, maybe on my initial track, I was certainly meant to work in a big pharma, but I now realize that I was not made for that. Definitely. I think and in my position, that was certainly good because I was different. And basically when we had to convince some pharma companies to work with us, maybe we would have never convinced them if we were acting like they were acting internally. I think they were looking for different things, that maybe at some point I've been maybe able to share. No frustration at all. Now I'm seeing that a bit from the Novo angle, and I think it's a good mix of the two. Now I can better understand all the things that are running inside of a big pharma, but in the setup that works super well for me.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I would like to conclude this discussion and going on maybe a bit more on the personal side, even if you already talked a lot about this. I feel, yes, you're really human oriented. You're really people oriented mindset. And how did you develop this? How did you found it's really your driver?
I have no idea, to be honest. I'm sure that it's not coming from the books, and even if I enjoyed very much my time at ESSEC, I don't think that's something that you can learn. I think it's really coming from something that I certainly had personally, but I think also looking at your mentor, how your mentor are behaving, and I think going back to what I said before, I got a lot of trust from the founder and major equity and major investor in the company, and I think I did the same with all my team members. So I think it's very natural way that you are sharing that trust that you got to the people that you are leading, and then it's. Yeah, you need to take time basically to with people and chase those people. And I think when I'm looking to hire new people, I think I've been interviewing suddenly all of the new employees at Biocorp. Now maybe a bit less, but I believe that's super important because that's people that you want to work with, and it's not written in the resume who they are. And I think the who they are is super important. It's not only a skill set. It's how you're able to put your skill set to the service of the company you're working in. And you need to have a good mix of people. So I think it's certainly the biggest challenge I've been living to manage internally was really how people can live together and how you can get the best out of the people. But definitely in a company, if you want to succeed, it's only a matter of people. So that's where you need to put a lot of focus.
Yes, and you were trained like this, you learned like this, and then you want to give back like this.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yes, Eric, last question, maybe if you want to share some advice, okay, let's say for big pharma companies who are working on innovative solutions, maybe with startups. And what do you want to share about what you learned about this collaboration, these contacts you get?
It's I mean, one advice would be certainly to shake a bit and shake the consensus. Is I think if you are looking to be impactful for your organization, you need to think outside the box, and certainly in some setup, at least in the digital area, or some drug delivery device, I do believe that that's not the key elements where pharma is making the difference. And I think it's good to realize where you're very strong at, and maybe where you are not so strong or as strong, and where external companies can help you. So take some risk. I think it's not so. I mean, not so easy in big pharma to make those bold choice, but I recognize that for the one at least that bet into Biocorp, that went pretty well and successful for them. So I think it's put some trust on some partners to do things that you would have difficulties to push internally. So in a way, maybe be an entrepreneur in your own pharma model would be my advice.
Wow, nice conclusion. Thank you infinitely, Eric, for this discussion. Yes, I like the courageous journey and the results of an ultra resilient team. And yes, congratulations. And I think you've given us a great lesson in humility, transparency, and an experience of a career based on convictions. It's really interesting today. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Eric. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you gained valuable insights. Want to keep chatting? Drop your comments on LinkedIn. You'll find the link in the episode description. Got ideas or guest suggestions? Message me on LinkedIn. And hey, if you want to support the podcast, give it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. That means the world to me. Catch you soon for more exciting episodes. Stay curious, stay inspired, and stay tuned to Pharma Minds.